My name is Dr. Helen Sawyers. I am a medical doctor. I am an online powerlifting and strength coach. Today I'm going to go through an incredibly simple way to improve your bench. This program is ideal if you bench less than 2 plates, so less than 225 if it's pounds, or less than 100 kilos if you work in the proper units. I've competed for more than 15 years in various sports, and throughout my time, I've gone from benching less than 100 kilos, I can't even remember what I started at, to a max of currently 170. So it's March 25 right now, so hopefully that'll be more by the time you're watching this. When I very first started at the gym, I actually tore my pec on the second day at the gym because I was copying somebody who I shouldn't have been copying. I had no business doing what they were doing. So I weighed about 65 kilos at the time, and I tried doing dumbbell flies with 30 kilo dumbbells. As you can imagine, my pec popped. So my first exposure to the bench was during rehabilitation after tearing my pec. Now, after that, I then had to have a shoulder reconstruction and various issues. So what all that means is I've had to learn how to bench from the beginning and how to bench when having other issues. I've had to be more deliberate in the kind of programming I use to bench because I just don't have the structure for it. So this is what I've found tends to work best for people that are more in that beginner stage with the bench. So there are a few rules for this. The number one most important rule is your technique needs to be the exact same every time you bench. So what I mean by that is sometimes when you bench, you have a wide grip, sometimes you have a narrow grip, sometimes medium. Stop doing that. Same every single time. Same idea with pausing. I like to see you pause for a 2 count on the chest. I say 2 count for my athletes. In reality, it ends up being about 1 second. So that means down, 1, 2, press. This keeps it consistent again. So it's the same every time. Obviously, if you're competing powerlifting, pause bench is what you're going to have to do. But even just for general training, the pause bench will teach you how to have more control and make you stronger long term in general. So this program is 2 sessions a week. The idea is you can bolt this onto your normal training. I wouldn't do extra chest, shoulder, or tricep work, but you can slot it in with the rest of your program. So perhaps you're a bodybuilder and you just want a big bench. You just want to work up towards new benchmarks, but you don't know how to do it. This would be the ideal thing for you to do. Day one, very simple. You're going to work up to one set of 1 rep at RPE 8. So RPE means rate of perceived exertion, and 8 means you could have done 2 more. So 9 could have done 1 more, 7 could have done 3 more. It's almost like the opposite of reps in reserve. So 3 reps in reserve would be a 7. You're going to work up to a heavy single. This is going to be auto-regulated. So some weeks you'll be stronger than others, but over time it should generally be trending up. You're then going to take 10% of that load. So what you do is you remove one of the digits from it. So say you got 95 kilos. So you need to remove 9.5 kilos from it. Now, obviously, that's not practical. So what you can do instead is just round it to the nearest number. So you might go from 95 for a single down to 85 for 1 set of 3. Then another 10% off that. Using the 10% of the top single, you're going to go down to 75 for 4 sets of 3. That's it. Super, super simple. Now, when you're doing these singles, these triples, sorry, and the single, you need to make sure you pause, good control, and maximum power when you bench back up. So the idea with these is not that they should be slow and grindy reps. They should be getting relatively fast over time because you probably don't have the skill of lifting the heavier loads. So your RPE 8 single won't actually be that high. Now, over time, obviously this is going to go up. So over time, these back off sets are going to get more difficult. And that's fine. That's kind of the point. Next up, what you are going to do is very, very simple. You're going to do 1 pec accessory and 1 front delt accessory. An example of a pec accessory could be a dumbbell press, for example. A front delt accessory could be a front raise. If you're doing front raises, I would strongly suggest doing them laid on your back on the bench so that it mimics the same as a normal bench. So your shoulder is moving through the exact same range of motion. Now, this is going to be it for day one. Like I say, you can fit in the rest of your training if you need to around this. This can just be a bolt on. So day two, very, very, very simple. This looks much easier on paper, but in reality, it shouldn't be. You are going to do 6 sets of 3 reps at 80% of your current max, unless your current max you've hit within the last couple of weeks, then you can adjust and increase the weight, obviously. So you might end up for 2 or 3 weeks using the same weight. That's fine. Don't increase it. Idea is that you stick at the same load. You are, again, pausing the reps and lifting them with max power every single time. This over time will start off as being slightly slower reps, and over time they'll become faster and faster. This is skill work. This is practicing the technique. So there are 3 types of strength. There are 3 phases of strength. Phase 1 is learning the movement. So where you're a bit shaky, a bit uneven, you just need the skill of the bench. So you go from 0 kilos, like 45-pound bar or whatever, to your 50, 60 kilos because you just learn to bench. You're not as shaky, you're not as up and down. It's just the skill acquisition. Phase 2 of getting stronger is when you are actually physically getting stronger. You go from benching 60 kilos to benching 80 kilos. Your muscles are stronger. Phase 3 is when you go from getting stronger physically to getting stronger at the movement. So this is more of the neurological adaptation, and this is more of the skill acquisition. So this is where the extra technique stuff comes in. This is where you see like powerlifters with a bigger arch. They're becoming more efficient at that specific movement rather than just getting stronger muscles. All 3 are fine, but what this is doing is fast tracking you through that phase 1 to make sure your technique is efficient. You can then use it a little bit for the phase 3. I do have a few people that have used this that are benching 150, 160 kilos. That's like 350 pounds or something, and still getting good results. But in general, like I said, it's something for people a little bit less advanced. And then you're going to do a tricep accessory. For this, I would opt for something that you can load up quite heavy. So for example, skull crushers, dips, something like that. On this session, do not increase the load past what it's supposed to be. So you're going to repeat this layout every week. This is how you're going to progress it. You need to make sure you stick to the target intensity. So with RPE8, like I say, you should have been able to do at least 2 more reps. Now, practically, this is a silly thing, but I always find people don't always do it. You need to make sure you warm up to your working weights every single session. So if you know, for example, you're going to be aiming to be somewhere between 80 and 85 kilos for your top set, what you're going to do is you're going to do the bar, so 20 kilos for sort of 20 to 30 reps. You are then going to do perhaps 40 kilos for 5 or 6 reps. You're then going to do 60 kilos. You're then going to do 70 kilos. You're going to do, say, 75 or 77.5, and then 80, 82.5, whatever it is for you. Generally speaking, as you go heavier, the warm-up jump should be smaller. So warm-up jumps initially quite big, and then like less. So you wouldn't, for example, go 90 kilos, 100 kilos, 120 kilos. That wouldn't make sense. What would have made more sense would have been, say, 90 kilos, 110 kilos, 120 kilos. I'm struggling to think of those weights because I don't make those weight jumps now, but hopefully you get the point. Now, when you are counting the weight as well, make sure you count the weight of everything on the bar, so the plates and the bar. It might sound silly, but it is a thing that people don't always realise. So as you get stronger, what should happen is the RPE8 single should be gradually going up each week. Now, if you find it's not going up, what you either need to do is either you feel beat up and tired, you need to decrease the volume a little bit, or you still feel good, you still feel recovered, you need to increase the volume a little bit. Notice I said volume and not the intensity. So volume is how much work you're doing. Intensity is either how hard it is or how close to your max it is. It can be used in 2 different terms. Now, for all of the accessories, it's going to be very, very simple. What you're going to do is 3 sets of 8 at roughly an RPE8. So that means you think you could do 2 more. You are then going to do a 4th set and go to mechanical failure. So you're going to do failure on the concentric. So that is the way up. So if you're doing a curl, concentric is this, eccentric is the way down. So mechanical failure means you cannot complete it with the same technique, with the same mechanics. Your muscle is tired. You're done. For example, say you decide to do dumbbell press as your accessory and you do 30 kilos for 3 sets of 8. You think that's about an RPE8. You then do your 4th set and you actually get 15. That means you are nowhere near an RPE8 on your other sets. So next week you can adjust and go a bit heavier. Maybe you try 32, 34, whatever the next weights are. Now saying that, if you're using that weight dumbbells, you're probably already benching more than 100 kilos. If not, you probably need to improve your dumbbell press technique, to be honest. So this is just a way of keeping you honest over time. So Some example pec movements. If you go on my channel, there are loads of shorts of different exercises if you want to see the demos. So for pec movements, flat dumbbell press, incline dumbbell, incline barbell, dips, even press ups. If you're weak enough that press ups get you to an RPE 8, then do them. You can always modify press ups to make them harder, but they could be a decent movement as well. I generally wouldn't do a different barbell movement apart from incline for this, just because of you're learning the skill of one, and whilst you're still in the beginner phase, kind of want you to get used to it over time. So next up, front delt movements. So front raises, already said about that. You can do them on a barbell, dumbbell, cable. You could do a strict overhead press or neutral. So I say strict, I don't mean using your legs to push, I mean strict. So just using your shoulders and your arms to lift. This is something that gets missed out a lot on bench training. And it is for a good reason that it gets missed out on. That's because lots of people are just training for hypertrophy and they want to have a relatively balanced physique. When you do lots of pressing normally, your front delts do get a lot of work. However, this is to get stronger. So you want to train the prime movements. Prime mover means the muscles do the most work. So your chest, shoulders, and triceps are the prime moves when you bench. It's silly to not train them when you're benching, because although they are taxed indirectly, they're not stressed to their maximum when you're training them for the bench. So it makes sense to train them directly. And then finally, tricep movements. So the one of the exceptions of the barbell movement we might do is a close grip incline bench. Now the reason for the incline is you get such a big range of motion on it that you have to use quite a lot less load, so it's not as fatiguing compared to just a normal close grip bench. Skull crushers are a good option. You can either go to your head or behind your head. Obviously tricep push downs, everybody knows this. Overhead extensions and things like giant presses, they all work too. You just need to make sure you find the ones that don't irritate your triceps. If you've stalled for more than sort of 2 to 3 weeks, then I would either increase or decrease the total volume, depending on what I said earlier. And that's it.